Hello, I'm back again for a late top 10 of the year video. 2024 frankly wasn't the magical year that was 2023 and was filled with quite a few disappointments, but I think I managed to put together a solid top 10. I managed to watch 40 films that were released this year, which is quite a lot, but honestly not as many as I'd like. So here's a couple films released this year that I haven't seen yet that didn't make the list. Anora, The Brutalist, I Saw the TV Glow, A Real Pain, The Apprentice, Nickel Boys, and Queer. I also did want to name some honourable mentions that were very close to the top 10. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, an excellent continuation of the Planet of the Apes franchise. The Wild Robot, wholesome, beautiful story of nature and identity. The Substance, a wild experience of body horror and fame. And Kneecap, a thoroughly exciting Irish tale of music, repression, language, and culture.
Come to me. Come to me. Hear my call.
Robert Eggers is one of my favourite directors working today, and after seeing Nosferatu, he simply has not made a bad movie to date. While miraculously this actually turns out to be my least favourite Robert Eggers film, it definitely deserves a place in the top 10. Nosferatu is a remake or adaptation of the 1922 expressionistic German film of the same name. As a remake, Nosferatu delivers on a lot of its promises, while also having all the hallmarks of a classic Eggers film, an emphasis on historical detail and atmosphere. There are many shots in this that could easily haunt your dreams for weeks. Eggers uses the camera to peer around corners, leave you in terrifying dark shadows, all to feel the horror of the predicament the characters have found themselves in. Eggers doesn't shy away from the idea of evil incarnate, and is able to create a dark, eerie, terror-filled energy that commands the film from every scene start to finish. Lily Rose Depp needs a mention here. She simply puts in one of the performances of the year. She makes you believe her grief, trauma and horror in every scene, not only through her emotion, but also physically, throwing herself around, realizing her horror to us, the audience. Also, Eggers and his actors are able to create a sense of dread, a sense of hopelessness and depression, which builds on the unseen horror of Nosferatu the vampire. Nosferatu manages to seamlessly hit all the story beats of a gothic horror film, a vampire film, and an Eggers film, and a top 10 of the year film.
You'd have to kill me to get this jacket off.
It's strange that I haven't seen the Bikeriders in many people's top 10 lists, or much talk about it at all, because I do think it is expertly made. The Bikeriders is an adaptation of a photo book by Danny Lyon, and tells a story of a motorcycle club called the Vandals, and their subsequent members. The film looks at how the club evolves over the developing 60s and 70s, through the lens of its members, but also namely Kathy, played by Jodie Comer, who acts as a vessel for the audience to judge and view the club from an outsider point of view. The Bikeriders almost feels like a documentary at times with its filmmaking and direction, being very subtle and not dominating its subjects. In a sense, it lets the story tell itself. At its core though, I feel as though the Bikeriders explores ideas of identity, masculinity, rebellion, and vulnerability. The Bikeriders explores the need to be in a group with rules, but also the desire to rebel against those rules. It also explores the inevitability of change, how people rise and fall, trends come and go, and a cycle of violence. The Bikeriders, through its costume, production design, and acting, breathes a sense of authenticity, which ultimately helps the audience garner belief in the story they're witnessing. I also think the Bikeriders has some of the best casting of the year, with every actor filling their role perfectly. Tom Hardy playing the king of the Vandals, Austin Butler playing the new tough kid. The casting on its own tells the audience a little bit about each character without any words being spoken, and the acting on its own is excellent, with magnetic screen presence from pretty much everyone, and accents and expressions breathing that authenticity.
Certainty. Certainty is the great enemy of unity. Certainty is the deadly enemy of tolerance.
Conclave was as gripping as it gets. Right at the Pope's death, the premise is set. 138 cardinals locked in the Sistine Chapel, all trying to elect a new pope, all fighting to be pope. The location and production design absolutely proves its worth here, with many amazing shots, but also in its ability in creating claustrophobic drama, and an enclosed space to analyse our characters and their subsequent relationships in. Conclave takes its audience for a ride, inside its main character, Dean Lawrence, played masterfully by Ralph Fiennes. With Lawrence, we scurry around investigating, interviewing, and analysing the many cardinals around the chapel, letting us and Lawrence draw our own conclusions, playing the very political game that Lawrence didn't want to play and that we ourselves know is so dangerous. This very concept, though, of judging people from afar and uncovering secrets and lies at the helm of one of the most important places in the world is what makes Conclave so thrilling. Conclave provides good insight into the idea of leadership and the requirements of it, and leads you to an ending you think is happening and absolutely flips that narrative on its head, raising the film to top of the year level, and also raises thought-provoking questions that I won't spoil. The performances were very strong throughout, and the music and cinematography make it hard to look away, with the music building tension and suspense in every scene, and the cinematography and production design using reds and whites to perfectly balance each shot. If you're about my age, or perhaps a bit older, I have a strong feeling that you will like this. Didi is a 2000s, or specifically a 2008 coming-of-age period piece, essentially telling a tale of what it's like to be a young teenager during that time. Didi hit me with that sweet hit of relatability and nostalgia. There were so many times I wanted to scream at the theatre screen. That's what it was like. Didi comes from a strong sense of authenticity and emotional depth of what it's like to grow up. The awkwardness, the ambition, the depression, the joy, the friends you lose, the friends you gain, and the drive to find a passion and a place. And the time it was set in was just a cherry on top. Didi's main character, Wang Wang, has that 13-year-old naivety and bullishness that we all had at that age. Wang Wang makes mistakes, is treated fairly and harshly, and puts himself on a journey from which we can see a man that he becomes. Also, Joan Chen for me puts in a supporting actress of the year performance. She adds a level of care and depth to the film that it needed, but also Wang Wang needed at that age. Joan Chen's character, Wang Wang's mother, portrays the desire for a mother to help their child even though they can't, and the stress of being a parent to growing up teenagers perfectly. Didi, directed by Sean Wang, is semi-autobiographical, which explains a lot of the authenticity, but I think it also shows we're approaching, or rather in, an era of nostalgic movies being made about the 2000s, which I am all for. Flow is an 80-minute animated movie about a cat with no dialogue, and I loved it. Visually, the film is breathtaking. With no dialogue, you really have to nail the visuals, and Flow does. There are moments you can just sit back and simply enjoy the beauty in front of you. The narrative stems around a seemingly dystopian world filled only with animals, being struck by heavy rising water level. Our cat journeys around, gaining many animal friends along the way, all with distinct personalities that help service the story they find themselves in. The film explores ideas of loss, teamwork, discovery, and curiosity, all in subtle ways. I was lucky enough to see this movie at the Melbourne International Film Festival and have a Q&A with the director after the screening. It really struck me that so many different people took different meanings from the film: climate change, religion, grief, discovery, and more. And I think that is something that happens when you take dialogue out of a movie. People are able to sit in their own thoughts and not being told what to think over and over again. The animals felt real. In the Q&A, director Jins Zabelidis explained that the team went into a lot of detail researching the different behaviours of the animals that they animated, and it shows. The animals felt real, but also subtly magical at the same time, which is an energy that I think is hard to replicate, and an energy that I don't see in many other animated movies. I can't understate how good Flow looked. Flow is an unbelievable step forward for small-scale indie animation, and in itself is a beautiful animated masterpiece. A Different Man is perhaps one of the more innovative and uniquely profound films that I watched in 2024. It's a complex, unsettling, dense outlook on identity, perception, and appearance. A Different Man follows aspiring actor Edward as he undergoes a medical transformation and loses control of the life he once had. Stylistically, A Different Man jumps in and out of the form of a bizarre, uncanny nightmare that we as the audience sit there and watch unravel upon itself, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Sebastian Stan for me puts in one of the performances of the year and his career, in a role that required a strong level of subtle, hellish awkwardness that only a few actors working today could pull off. The film doesn't tell you a whole lot, so a lot of it is reading Sebastian Stan's face and the many emotions of depression, anger, and resentment all at the same time. Adam Pearson also deserves a mention for executing exactly what the film needed him to do at multiple points, portraying two vastly different people in different situations. Director Aaron Schimberg has to be given props for the film's uniqueness, but also managing to seamlessly control the many different tones of the film throughout, and being able to mix genres of comedy, body horror, and drama perfectly to give the audience several different takes and experiences. A Different Man's screenplay takes its characters and story through different twists and turns, exploring its own irony and comedy, and its many different changing tones, but ultimately it never loses its key themes and messages it wants to portray to you.
Dune.
Is that okay?
While I am one of those rare people that prefers the first Dune to the second, Dune Part 2 still deserves a place at number 4 on this list. For years called the unfilmable book, director Denis Villeneuve has well and truly excelled in creating the world of Dune. Dune Part 2 pretty much continues where it leaves off in Dune, and excels in every aspect needed for good world building. Its production design, sound design, its costume, and other aspects. But importantly, it's how this world building is shot by Denis and cinematographer Greg Fraser that is important. Denis' ability to know when to go wide and then go close gives the story a sense of grand scale but also close intimacy towards the characters that makes it such an enthralling but immense story. Timothée Chalamet is probably my favourite actor working today, but in this film he went to a place that I didn't know he could, going from quiet, awkward teenagers to portraying Paul with such intensity, gravitas, and power. Sadly, Dune is a diamond in the rough of big budget movies nowadays. Not many others are being created with such care and craftsmanship at such a grand scale. Dune is a generation-defining franchise, with arguably the world's current best director, best actors, and best composer working together to deliver all-time bangers.
You crawled out of a pitiless grave deeper than hell. Only one thing's gonna do that for you. Not hope. Hate. No shame in hate.
Furiosa is perhaps the most underappreciated film of 2024. Furiosa is of course the prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, and details the origin story of Furiosa and her formation as the legendary warrior we see in Fury Road. For me, Furiosa is pretty much a perfect prequel. It provides the right amount of context to Fury Road while also forming new ideas, characters and settings that enhances the scale and understanding of the Mad Max world we have grown to become immersed in. Furiosa is more of a character and narrative driven story than Fury Road, which might be why I prefer it. For me, it matches Fury Road visually and stylistically, but also adds more emotional and contextual depth to not only the world but the characters, which for some people the movie suffers as it focuses less on that well-known action. It must be said also that Furiosa is remarkably brutal. The film isn't afraid to put its characters through absolute hell and portrays the world as unforgiving and cruel, which ultimately makes the audience sympathise that much more with Furiosa's desperation for revenge. Anya Taylor-Joy proves that she can excel and hold the weight of leading a big budget film. Anya gives Furiosa a sense of suppressed rage and determination, not through her dialogue but her expression. Chris Hemsworth, now broken from the shackles of Thor, puts in an incredible, charismatic, terrifying, villainous performance. He fully commits to the character he's playing, and the film is better for it. Furiosa furthers my love for the Mad Max world, and all its wackiness, grandness, and epicness.
What do you think?
How fucking dare you?
Jesus Christ!
You want my best piece of advice for you? You want me to coach you? Okay, quit.
Challenges is the most fun I had in the cinema this year. Challenges follows a love triangle between 3 tennis players, and over time the film examines this relationship, exploring themes of trust, lust, jealousy, and sacrifice in the most visually captivating way. The way each conversation and tennis shot is deeply striking. I think the film uses tennis in perhaps the smartest way it could. Tennis in this film reflects the relationships that are presented in front of us, putting relationships through a lens of competitiveness and ambition, or a game or a match, thus meaning the film doesn't just throw away its chosen sport as many sport romance movies do, instead using tennis and the innate sense of a game or a match within its narrative structure to ultimately reflect upon its most tennis-obsessed character, Tashi, and her thoughts and beliefs. Challenges for me is pretty much a mastery of all film codes and conventions to get the audience to buy in and scrutinize the characters that are presented in front of them, which makes for truly addicting viewing. These characters don't learn, they're kind of assholes, and they're deeply unfulfilled. They are depressed, they are real, they all chase an innate desire for connection. And none of this could have been achieved without the cast, who will just carry the film with so much screen presence. Zendaya puts in the best performance of her career in a type of role she should do over and over again. The synth techno score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross adds so much to this film. It makes the film radiate such a captivating, evocative, seductive energy, and adds a specific rhythm and pace that makes it hard to stop watching. Some might not buy into the style or the subject, but the truth is there aren't that many directors that could have made this film as exciting and captivating as it is, but one of them is Luca Guadagnino. On Luca, sensuality and vulnerability is something he has truly mastered. He approaches these subjects with a level of care and subtlety that not many other directors or films can match. And the best thing, he was able to take that same vulnerability and sensuality to a film like Challenges that easily could have been made without it, but is so much better with it.
That woman over there keeps staring at me.
Kinds of Kindness is a film I've been waiting for a long time. A couple of years ago, I delved into the filmography and world of Yorgos Lanthimos and quickly fell in love with his unique voice and style. And while I enjoyed The Favourite and Poor Things, this is what I've been craving. A return to the weird, unnerving, uncomfortable, blunt Yorgos Lanthimos. Kinds of Kindness is described as a triptych fable and tells 3 separate tales. A man without choice who tries to take control of his life, a policeman who is alarmed that his wife, who is missing at sea, has returned and seems a different person, and a woman determined to find a specific someone with a special ability who is destined to become a prestigious spiritual leader. These stories feel thematically connected. The film for me looks at power, control, love, sacrifice, and desperation, and of course, kindness. Yorgos, like he does, looks at these ideas in a very surreal way. These worlds feel and look like our own world, just slightly off, slightly vague, distorted. These characters also look and sometimes act human, but ultimately prey upon their coldest and deepest emotions and pleasures. They obey their awkward, messed up rules that are either created by an auspicious leader or seem to have seemingly just come into existence, like a commonly agreed upon social contract, leaving these characters or prisoners in their own modern, claustrophobic, screwed up world that may be more similar to ours than we'd like to admit. Yorgos all executes this with a subtle, non-judgmental feel. It's almost as if we're witnessing a cautionary tale, but we don't know it yet. Jesse Plemons is a standout among the stellar cast, playing 3 different characters across the film, all different but similar in some ways. Jesse Plemons always looks like he doesn't quite belong, that something is off. He looks uncomfortable, He acts judgmental but subservient to the world and story around him. Yorgos is truly a unique and special filmmaker, and with the almost 3-hour runtime, this film may not be for everyone, but if you're a fan of Lanthimos, or more broadly weird, uncomfortable, dark comedies that make no sense, I'd definitely give it a watch. So there's the list. I'd be very keen to listen to any of your thoughts in the comments, and I strongly encourage you to watch any of the films on this list and form your own opinion. I also did want to mention I was close to putting Megalopolis on this list, and on that I'm taking no further questions. And I know I haven't made many videos recently, but I do thank you for watching this one, and hopefully there is more videos to come. But that's it from me. Goodbye.
So go back to the club,